Hello guys, I have shocking news for you on this video today. Spanish is not spoken in Brazil, I'm sorry.
What?
And our capital is not Buenos Aires.
Again, what?
Actually, Brazil was discovered by the Portuguese in the year 1500. Thus, Portuguese is spoken in the land. Brazilian Portuguese, which is quite different from the one our former colonizers speak, both in vocabulary and especially in pronunciation. On this video, I'm going to tell you the history of the Portuguese language. And if you want to rewatch it, but in Brazilian Portuguese, just to hear how pretty it sounds, we will release its Portuguese version an hour later of the release of this video. So stay there, it's right after the intro. Hello guys, hope you guys are doing great wherever you are. It's really common to take things for granted in our lives. I have done that with my Brazilian Portuguese. It's just when you start paying attention to your language that you realize how beautiful it is and how much history there is behind it. In my case, this only happened because I have become a Brazilian Portuguese teacher for foreign students. And that made me look at my own language with another perspective. I want to show you the history of the Portuguese language right now, but not before I ask you to join this Brazilian Unsubtitled family that grows a little bit more every single day. Make sure you click on the like button to help this video have the publicity it deserves. But don't leave it to the last minute, guys, please. Do it now and you'll be helping us a lot. Subscribe and click on the bell button to receive notifications of new videos to come. This channel also has a Patreon account if you want to commit to helping us even more and receive extra content for that. You can find the Patreon link in the description of this video. The history of the Portuguese language is directly connected to the history of the Iberian Peninsula, a region that's mostly associated with what is the countries of Portugal and Spain today, and the Latin language the Romans brought with them when they occupied the peninsula. The Latin language belongs to the Italic group's Indo-European family of languages, and the similarities between them made the people suppose they were but one language. During ancient times, before Jesus Christ, and much before the emergence of the kingdoms of Spain and Portugal, a primitive people called the Iberians, whose main activity was the agriculture, inhabited the south and the east of the peninsula. In the 6th century before Christ, the Celts invaded the Iberian Peninsula, coming originally from the north of Europe, more precisely where the territories of France, Switzerland, and the Netherlands are located today. The Celts imposed their culture to the region, and this mix originated a new people known historically as the Celtiberians. Of all the people who inhabited the peninsula during many different time periods, the Celtiberians were the ones with the most advanced culture for social relations. In the 3rd century before Christ, the Celtiberians asked the Romans for help in battling the Carthaginians and stopping them from taking over the Iberian Peninsula. The war was called the Punic Wars, and the Roman legions were successful in kicking the Carthaginians out of the territory. But such support would end up having a price, guys, because after that the Roman legions invaded the Iberian Peninsula and annexed the territory to Rome, imposing their colonization to the people of the peninsula. With the territorial conquer, a language conquer came along. For the Romans imposed their language, the Latin, to the conquered people. It is important to say here that the Latin variant taken by the Romans to the peninsula was a vulgar version of the classic Latin, called the language of the people, one that was gradually becoming different from the source. As the Roman Empire expanded, such variant got more and more diversified And that's the version that got to the peninsula during the takeover. By learning that, it is possible to deduce that the Romance languages, such as French, Italian, Spanish, Romanian, and even Portuguese, were derived from the Latin's vulgar version. A lot of the grammatical aspects of those languages, guys, show that they are the direct continuation of the popular Latin. The Portuguese itself represents the current state of the vulgar Latin being transformed a number of times in the Lusitania and influenced by the peninsula speakers. The expansion of the Roman Empire was responsible for the transformation the Latin language was undergoing, once it was influenced by the languages of the peoples conquered by Rome, which made the vulgar Latin get different from the one used in Rome. Starting by the 4th century, two variants of Latin take shape. Sermo Urbanus or Sermo Quotidianus, which was the Latin's most educated version, spoken by the aristocracy in Rome, and whose written form was constituted by the classic Latin, and the Sermo Plebeius, or the vulgar Latin, which was spoken by the crowds, the people with less education. In the 5th century, with the fall of the Roman Empire, keeping the Latin language unified was no longer possible. Under such scenario, with the modification imposed by the mix with the regional and local languages, the Romance languages were born. At this time period, the barbarian peoples invaded the Iberian Peninsula and brought an end to the ties that still unified Rome to the provinces of the empire. And even though the barbarians did not succeed in imposing their mother tongue to the peninsula, the Latin lost its unity as a language and it generated local dialects that morphed into a number of languages. However, it is undeniable the fact that the barbarians left a significant linguistic influence to the language used in the region. Around 411 AD, it was time for the Suebi people to settle down in Galicia and Lusitania. Around 585 AD, the Visigoths got to the peninsula, conquered the Suebi people, and put a strong kingdom together, occupying the whole territory of Spain except Galicia and the Basque country, for they were still under the Suebi domination. The effect of such German migration to the peninsula was not uniform, and even though Latin had contact with the German languages for 3 centuries, there are few linguistic German traces in the Portuguese language. In 711 AD, the Moors, Muslim people speaking Arabic as their official language, got to the Iberian Peninsula. In a very short time, they took over the whole region, which included Galicia and Lusitania. With their invasion, the Arabic language was adopted as the region's official language, but the population still kept speaking the Romance languages. The Moors brought their culture and language to the peninsula, but that was not enough to destroy a Christian resistance movement that made shelter in the Asturias, the north of the peninsula, to regroup and plan the reconquering. In 1072 AD, King Alfonso de Leon and Castile defeats his brother Sancho II of Castile after the latter tried to take over Alfonso's territories. King Alfonso then takes over the throne of Leon and Castile, Galicia, and the county of Coimbra. In 1096 AD, King Alfonso VI offered Galicia to Dom Raimundo when this married his daughter Dona Urraca, and also offered the county of Portugal, territory located in the Kingdom of Leon, to Dom Henrique de Borgogne, as well as granted him permission to marry his other daughter, Teresa of Leon, for Dom Henrique's role in the reconquering of the territories that were with the Moors. Henrique de Borgogne then unites the colony of Portugal with the county of Coimbra, starts defending its independence, and establishes Guimarães as the capital. After Don Henrique passed away in 1112, his wife Dona Teresa takes over the kingdom, but she needs to face political and family issues, for she planned to marry the Galician Count Fernão Pérez de Trava, thus handing the territories of the county of Portugal to the Kingdom of Galicia. today Spain. Dom Afonso Henriques, Dona Teresa's son, refuses to accept such move and, rebelling against his own mother, defeats her in the Battle of São Mamed, in the city of Guimarães, north of Portugal. Having defeated his mother, Dom Afonso takes over the power and proclaims himself the Prince of the colony, which he calls the Kingdom of Portugal, and also transfers the capital to Coimbra. That way, in 1139, after the victory of the Christian forces led by Dom Afonso Henriques against the Muslim soldiers in the Battle of Urique, Dom Afonso proclaims himself the King of the Portuguese and is acclaimed by his troops as King Afonso I of Portugal. The new independent Kingdom of Portugal expands to the south, annexing regions that had been conquered by the Moors. Such wars, guys, were sponsored by the Catholic Church against the Arab invaders. With the conquering of the cities of Faro and Algarve, Portugal defines its current territorial borders and has its first king, establishing the division between Portugal and Spain. In this territory, a cultural and linguistic mix took place, creating a language under important Celtic, Moorish, Arabic, and mostly Latin influence. Guys, it is important to highlight here that the Muslim invasion and the reconquering of the territories were crucial to the formation of three different peninsular languages: the Galician Portuguese in the west, the Castilian in the center, and the Catalan in the east. All those three languages were born in the north of the peninsula and later taken to the south by the Reconquista. As Portugal expanded more to the south, the Galician dialect, or the Galician Portuguese, a common language spoken in the region of Portugal and Galicia, current Spain, incorporated local languages and thus created differences between the languages spoken by the Galician and the Portuguese. As a result, the expression Galician Portuguese is then divided into two different languages, with the Galician being absorbed by the Castilian and with the Portuguese evolving to become the Romantic language as it is known today. In 1189, the Portuguese language is recognized as a language of culture when it was used in the production of the song A Ribeirinha, written by Paio Soares de Taveiros. It is important to say that in that time period, there were no consistent rules for grammatical or orthographic norms, which means that it was really common to find the same word written in several different forms. In 1536, Fernão de Oliveira writes the first grammar of the Portuguese language, published in Lisbon, whose title read Gramática da Linguagem Portuguesa. After that, João de Barros publishes his Gramática da Língua Portuguesa in 1540. Starting by Portugal's maritime expansion, the Iberian Romanian Portuguese language gets to Brazil with its European format. In Brazilian territory, the Portuguese language receives indigenous and African linguistic influences, among others, especially on the lexical level. That doesn't mean that there is a rupture between Latin and the Brazilian Portuguese. Just the traditional linguistic evolution, once Latin is the immediate predecessor of the Romantic languages. The lexical dynamics of the Portuguese language is nothing more, nothing less than a universal phenomenon languages experience, for every living language is in constant transformation. I hope you have enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, make sure you smash the like button right here, subscribe to the channel in case you still haven't, and if you consider the possibility of learning the Brazilian Portuguese, send me a direct message on Instagram. Let's talk about Brasil Sem Legendas, the channel's Brazilian Portuguese course created by myself to help you learn this outstanding language. Now I will leave you with the version of this video in Brazilian Portuguese. Enjoy and leave your comments. Até mais!